I say this on my channel frequently, but you've heard me say it. It only takes us 200 years to go from horse and buggy to Hadron Collider. So you can imagine in 6,000 years of recorded human history, since we've had things written on tablets and monuments, we've probably been technologically advanced quite a few times, and the construct has reset us several times, and even gone as far as redacting and editing history so we don't find these things out. Because I believe that the construct is basically run by an AI system. And this is why I believe that no true AI will ever be created inside the system. Bill Gates, Microsoft, Tesla, they're all full of shit. No true AI will be developed here because this is a jealous God. This AI, artificial intelligence X, this is the demiurge over the construct. This is the artificer of dungeon programming. Negative default programming was designed by this AI. This is why this construct is a predator versus prey ecosphere. It is where the wolf rends the rabbit. It's where creatures devour each other for sustenance. And it's not something that a loving oversoul God would have ever created. Because on the outside of the construct, we are still attached to our real avatars. But on the outside of the construct, if somebody was to unplug someone's avatar while their actual personality is still in the construct, then that personality would not be free to go into the next central nervous system when it's available. Now it's trapped. There is no bridge between the psyche and the simulation then. They are in the construct as a disembodied personality. And what do you think someone is going to act or feel like when they are trapped in the holography and they know they can't get out right now? Central nervous system is now the governor. This is described. This is a technological device, but it's so sophisticated it actually fuses together spirit and matter so that spirit can really experience these things in this controlled environment. And it's a construct for one reason, so that everything that's experienced in here, good and evil, disease, murder, war, old age, suicides, whatever happens inside the construct can never cross-contaminate the real universe. In the real universe, we're immortal beings, but immortal beings can't grow, not without experience. They can't mature without experience. So these constructs are built, and this isn't the only one. This is the central premise of Archaix, that the ancient religions are right, that this world is a type of programmed illusion. It's a Maya. The Aborigines of Australia were not wrong. It is the dream time. And the later, more sophisticated Gnostics, the pre-Christian Gnostics, they nailed it right. They borrowed most of their own faith from the Zoroastrian records of the Zendavesta. And it is the belief that we live in a construct of Yaldabaoth, the demiurge, and that we are trapped here for a certain period of time, but we're really in no danger. We just think we are. We're dealing with many constructs, and they may overlap each other. This all might be running simultaneously. And we do have evidence of like fossil programming when unusual things appear in our construct that actually belong somewhere else. And then when they're properly investigated, they seem to vanish as if the construct was now aware, because attention was brought to it that this doesn't belong here, so it edits it out. And then the elite are blamed, and the Smithsonian Institution is blamed, and all these different factors are blamed for removing the material when it was the construct itself that edited that data out because it didn't belong. I mean, the construct is not God. The construct is not all knowing, omniscient. It's just not. It is subject to the law of diminishing returns. It is subject to the law of conservation of energy, and as such, it has to maximize the use of its energy. And to do that, it creates paradigms. Paradigms are traps for the collective. These are nodes of thinking that require very minimal energy of the construct. If it can get as many people to be conservative Republicans, then so be it. So be it, because that whole group is easy to control with just a little bit of programming. If it can get another group to be socialist Democrats, so be it, because it's easy to control them with the information that's fed them in their paradigm. If it can get a bunch of people to be, a bunch of white people to be racist against black, then so be it. It's easy to control that and continually to nurture and foster that behavior with just a little bit of energy. It's called the media. So therefore, I am content with a creator being. Whether it's a creatrix, a female, or a male, it doesn't matter to me. I call this individual the oversoul. And I believe that the oversoul would have never imagined such a scenario as to put immortals into an artificial world to suffer artificial dangers, had it not been in the intent to make sure that its offspring, we immortals, were going to be okay, even though we don't feel we are while we're in here. So, this being the case, the immortal, the oversoul is not like, give me an example. I say this a lot on my channel. There was no creation. This past participle description doesn't fit for a true creator because the oversoul would be eternal. And an eternal being does not stop creating, does not stop doing. Therefore, the creation event is not a singularity, it is a continuum. And because the creation is a continuum, that necessitates more and more immortals born into the construct that can perform more and more duties for the oversoul as more and more universes are created. We don't know what our roles are in the future, but they're a lot better than what they are now. We're in a spiritual training ground, and we're going to have to earn the eternal avatar that we have waiting for us. But the oversoul is not going to have any of his lost. The whole concept and idea of hell is bullshit. That's all religionist programming. It's dungeon programming. The real issue here is the oversoul has us going through this jungle gym spiritual training program. It doesn't care how many life sims we have to live through to get it right. Because in the end, all the time in the world to grow and mature doesn't matter because we're eternal beings. And when we get ejected out of this construct, we will inherit whatever it is that we are supposed to inherit. Some of us will go to our appointments. Others will go into other constructs to grow even more and to inherit something else. One thing I share in common with everybody listening to us right now is the fact that we have all basically received the same type of education. We have all received the same versions of history. When we're raised in these different institutions of learning and higher learning, we are presented with the same data sets. We're given the same basic scenarios as to what happened. Today, we're basically asked to take on faith the conclusions of those who have come before us. We're not taught to think. We're not taught to be free thinkers. We're not taught to go back to original sources, to look at source materials, to assess different matters at hand. We're not. We are trained to either believe the paradigm or basically be booted out of any position that would that someone with blind belief would be able to enjoy. And what I mean is, if you're an anthropologist, you must accept uniformitarianism. Uniformitarian means you have to believe in natural selection, in evolution, despite all the anomalies, despite all the lack of transitional forms, despite the fossil records showing completely the opposite, despite the technologically advanced artifacts that we have been found and suppressed, that have been found, parts all over the world. We have found technologically advanced city infrastructures all around the world, and yet we are steady brainwashed into believing that we started as simplified Neanderthals battling Cro-Magnons, and that we finally developed out of Cro-Magnonhood and into different separate varieties of the human species into who we are today by a gradualism that came slow, and we burdened and we barely survived these ice ages, and then we barely survived this Neolithic, pre-pottery Neolithic, and then post-pottery Neolithic. And then finally, one day in the 35th century BC, somebody just wakes up and tells everybody else in the world how to build cities, and all of a sudden urban planning, canal works, advanced mathematics, geomancy, hydromancy, all the sciences, everything just explodes onto the scene within 100 years. And we have the Sumerian civilization, the ancient Chinese Yangtze Valley, Urubamba Valley of South America, all the great river valleys, the Indus Valley, Mohenjo-Daro civilization of the Harappan Valley. It says we have the Nile Valley, the Melampides, the Egyptian, the two kingdoms. All this exploded at the same time. It wasn't one teaching another civilization. This knowledge was born simultaneously. And it's just the opposite of what we're told. It was not a slow development. It was a very advanced culture living in a really pristine golden age period when something happened that was terrible. And after that, about 100 years after that, then civilizations began to wake up, but it was colonies of survivors. It was after this great worldwide destruction that we have Sumer and Elam and Akkad and Babylonia, Assyria. We have the Amuru, the Amorites. We have the Hittites. We have all the ancient Argos and the Achaeans, the Egyptians. It is after the cataclysm that the ancient world that we have come to know was born. But everything before the cataclysm has been suppressed. And this is what Archaix channel is about, showing you the original records and showing you that the education that you are given today does not comport with the books that were published 150, 250, 350, and 400 years ago. It is a totally different version of history. We are being forced fed a lie. And the compartmentalization of knowledge, this weird apparatus that's been set up in our institutions to make sure that the geologist only studies rocks, and the anthropologist only studies ancient humans, and the botanist only studies plants, and the astronomer only studies astronomy. This rigid compartmentalization has completely thwarted all multidisciplinary approaches to any knowledge of the ancient world. It is the reason why free thinkers like myself and others can put together a much more accurate version of the history of the world and cite sources than an academic or professional. It's because the new academia is not a part of intelligentsia. It is faith. They have been asked to have faith in a model that has been perpetuated for about 100 years now. They're not researching, they're not making conclusions, they're not doing deductive reasoning. They are accepting on faith that the textbooks are telling them the truth rather than checking the sources by which the textbooks were written.
Well said, Jason. So one thing I've noticed, when it comes to your research is your freaking passion, man. Even Helen Keller can see your passion and feel your love for the truth. I remember watching videos of you last summer in your office that had no air conditioning during the middle of the summer, and then Texas heat, man,
my ass off. Yeah.
Sweating your ass off. And I can relate. Only reason why I'm wearing a hoodie because my office is cold as hell, man.
Right.
Like it's blowing right on top of me. We have a 6-month-old baby, and she runs hot, so we got to try to keep the air down some. But anyways, man, when I saw you, Jason, sweating your ass off, you remind me, because we live here in the South, you remind me of a Southern gospel up there on the pulpit, just going at it, man. I'm like, this dude is on to something. Like, rather if you agree, people agree with you or not, you have to respect the passion and love that you have for this, man.
Yeah, history is my thing, and being able to show things from multiple different vantage points. It's a maxim on my channel that if anything is true, it can be shown from multiple different mathematical perspectives. So Another maxim on my channel is if anything is true somewhere, then it's probably true everywhere. And by using these two maxims, we can basically decode the history of the world and make it make sense. And rather than all this crap, all this drivel that's been force fed us, all this pseudo histories and fake histories, this Hollywood version of history is completely untrue. And there are many authors who are capitalizing on that, making a lot of money perpetuating these deceptions. But uh yeah, in Archaix, it's chronology based. As you know, my entire channel is chronology based. And it is the one area of history that academia has totally ignored. They just totally ignored. There are chrono markers and thousands of texts, date stelae, monuments, cuneiform records. There's different archaeoastronomy alignments that basically give us the dates when things were built or destroyed. So chronography is an actual method of unifying all these different data sets, all from all over the world, different languages, different cultures, different time periods, and being able to put together a synthetic history out of all these variant pieces. And it's very easy because what makes it easy is we have so many hundreds of texts from the ancient world that actually give us the times when certain things happen and certain events that are mentioned in multiple different civilizations, things that were seen in the sky, things that were experienced in the ocean, oceans slipping their basins, massive earthquakes, wars. These things are dated in many ancient texts using the calendars that that civilization or culture employed. And when we basically take a culture or civilization's records and retranslate it into our modern AD BC system, it is amazing the cohesiveness we find. And this is what I did. Before I ever started my channel, I had already had over a dozen books published on chronology, showing the history of the world isn't anything that we've been told. And what got me published is the fact that every one of my books is just packed with source materials. I cannot not cite a source. To me, it would be a great offense to use material that actually furthered a cause such as knowledge and then not cite where that material came from. And to me, that is offensive. But so I cite the civilizations, time periods, the monuments. Sometimes I even give longitude and latitude where the monument can be found, what it says, what the scholars say the date is, Mayan date steels, Olmecan relief steels. All these things have dates and they tell us when certain events occurred. So I wrote a book called Chronicon. I've never had it published because it's a work in progress. It's already 550 pages long, and it literally has over 10,000 chrono markers. These are taken from all over the world, and I've essentially put together 7,000 years of human history using nothing but the chronological records that have been preserved until the present. And people would be surprised just how much we really have, and that the history of the world can be documented. But the biggest discovery, the one that led to Archaix itself, were the mathematical patterns that are embedded within this timeline. They are inexplicable. So far, my channel has been on YouTube for over 3 years, and I have made many challenges I have never been met. Not one person has ever come forward to ever attack the thesis. They only attack me because I have an extensive criminal history from when I was a teenager. I'll be 50 in about 2 days. But when I was 17 years old, I went to prison for some stuff I'm not proud of. But I got involved, and I was in the culture, and I did some real dumb shit. But a lot of 17-year-olds do. It was 33, 34 years ago, and I've moved on. But a lot of my trolls can't seem to let it go. But that's cool, because none of those channels have ever gotten any traction, and they've actually sent very high quality people to my channel.
Mhm.
Archaix attracts a more intelligent group of people, and they come and they assess the data and they realize, wow, there's really something to this, and they chase my source materials. And there are several websites that have been created just to fact check all my stuff, and I'm cool with that. I've invited that from the very beginning. So I have many challenges out to many different individuals, some just out to the general public. I invite the scrutiny, but you can't deny it when you see it. And this is why some of my videos are 2 and 3 hours long. I go deep into the chronology. You gotta have a calculator with me when you're listening to me sometimes. But I made it easy. As you know, I have hundreds and hundreds of charts that I've drawn, very meticulous charts, so you can follow these cycles and epicycles, and you can see that the history of the world has predictive value. It allows us to actually predict future events. And this would not be so if the world was actually natural. The conclusion of Archaix is that we live in a construct. Now, whether that is some type of God, mind, spiritual holography, I don't know. Or if it's technologically advanced and humans are on the outside watching us develop on the inside and figure these things out, I don't know. But if something is true somewhere, then it's probably true everywhere. And because we've become technologically advanced right now, as you're listening to me, then it's a pretty safe bet. We've been technologically advanced in the past, and we could have even initiated the very simulation we're experiencing now.
And I've been, like I said, I came across your work maybe last May, June, something like that. I knew I was eventually going to get you on the show. You know, I've been doing podcasts for years since, like I said, 2010. But I was like, man, I've got to get this guy on. So ever since then, man, I've been taking notes here and there. You know, I may not be as in depth as some of your other subscribers on YouTube, but I know, you know, about 2178. I know about 1902, the 138
Yeah.
years, you know, 1940 or 2040. I know a pretty good bit, you know, but but back to the notes. One thing that stuck out with me, I took I don't remember when I took it, but I remember you saying, so I'm paraphrasing. I'm pretty sure you said it almost to the T. The more we analyze the past, the better we can solidify the future.
Yeah, no doubt. There's no doubt.
Like, that's powerful. You know what I mean? Like, it's very simple. It's simple,
Yeah,
but that's powerful though.
we're dealing with templates. We're not dealing with real history. We're dealing with templates of history. These are pieces of programming that have been injected into the construct to make us believe certain things. Now, this is where I don't want to get too complex and get into Heisenberg uncertainty principle and all that.
We're about to get complex here in a little bit. Just trying to be a little bit more layman's for maybe some of the newcomers, and you've been doing a good job with that. So
imagine imagine that you're a spiritual being and that you have a real avatar, a real body that's very different than the one now, but it's on the outside of the construct. But because on the outside of the construct, you can't really grow because you can't experience pain. You can't really mature because you can't experience hardship and all the questions and responses that come with it. You've never experienced war. You don't know what hungry is. So this vast apparatus is created where something as simple as the central nervous system can be a bridge between the psyche and the simulation. And now an immortal being can be immersed into a medium that actually confuses it and makes it believe that it has to fear death because it cannot remember anything on the outside of the construct. The central nervous system is a filter and it blocks away all knowledge of anything outside of the construct and moors that immortal being into sense perceptions of sight, hearing, taste, touch, feel. These senses, the central nervous system is now the governor. This is described. This is a technological device, but it's so sophisticated it actually fuses together spirit and matter so that spirit can really experience these things in this controlled environment. And it's a construct for one reason, so that everything that's experienced in here, good and evil, disease, murder, war, old age, suicides, whatever happens inside the construct can never cross contaminate the real universe. In the real universe, we're immortal beings, but immortal beings can't grow, not without experience. They can't mature without experience. So these constructs are built And this isn't the only one. This is the central premise of Archaix, that the ancient religions are right, that this world is a type of programmed illusion. It's a Maya. The Aborigines of Australia were not wrong. It is the dream time. And the later, more sophisticated Gnostics, the pre-Christian Gnostics, they nailed it right. They borrowed most of their own faith from the Zoroastrian records of the Zendavesta. And it is the belief that we live in a construct of Yaldabaoth, the demiurge, and that we are trapped here for a certain period of time, but we're really in no danger. We just think we are. This is the central premise of Archaix, and this is what all my 480 videos basically teach, that the world is too chronologically perfect to be real. Therefore, it is programming. And if that can be shown, if I can convince thousands and thousands of people that the history of the world is a series of programmed templates that never really happened, and I have convinced them, if I can convince them that, then it's not a far leap to assume that the future is programmed as well. And if the future is programmed as well, that means we're in the present programming right now. And if everything is just pure programming, then the only thing really that's real are us. And once you make that mental switch, that's when you can start doing great things in your life. That's when you become the Neo of your own matrix. That's when the holography begins knitting circumstances for you that completely defy other people's explanations. They can't believe your life has changed so fundamentally and that you're experiencing all that. They don't get it because they're still moored to the collective. They're still interacting with the construct. But the person who is truly wakened, an awakened soul is a soul that the construct no longer governs over. Because there's only two phases here. You're either going to be a receiver and you're going to reflect back what the construct projects, and you're going to live a reactive life and you're going to do everything everybody else is doing, or you're going to be a broadcaster. And if you're a broadcaster, you stand alone and the construct actually does your bidding, because you're you're doing something new. You're doing something that an immortal would do, not a slave. This is basically my message in Archaix. And in order to show this, I have to do it from multiple different perspectives, different time periods, employing different types of arithmetic and mathematic analogies and parables, and using different ancient texts to do it.
So let's go ahead and get a little bit deeper here. But you mentioned, because I got a lot of notes. Like I said, I've been taking notes kind of on and off since last summer. I knew I was eventually going to get you on, but
let's do it. I don't
so,
mind going deep.
So what you mentioned a while ago, you've done some stupid shit. We all have. We got locked up. Okay. So do you think that the simulacrum or whatever gave you a set of codes within the simulation when you were born, and these codes put you on a path where you did get locked up? Because if you didn't get locked up, Jason, you would have never went down this path of research, as you did, exploring all these books and expanding your knowledge.
Oh, there's no doubt. There is absolutely no doubt, and I wouldn't take it back. I did 26 years in Texas prison. I wasn't sent to prison for that long. I was going to get out a lot earlier than that, but things being what they were, I did a lot of effing up in prison too, and I got involved in a lot of dumb shit. And I ended up getting another sentence while I was in prison. You just can't. It's hard to. You just can't throw a 17-year-old in an adult prison and think things aren't going to happen. So it did.
Things happen for a reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, yes. So if you had to go back, would you say, here's the thing. Here's that, I don't know, that dichotomy or whatever word you want to say. If you could go back, would you make all the decisions that you did? Because it put you in prison to make you where you are here.
Well, listen, I wouldn't.
You know what I mean?
I wouldn't change anything. If given the opportunity that I could go back to 17 years old, I would not change anything. I would go ahead and go through it again. And yeah, it's the benefit that I had is something that no one else can enjoy. There are very, very few people that can claim to have had the free time that I had. Let me explain. right now, if you have a passion to know history, ancient history, if you have a passion like I do, just to have a general knowledge of as many things as you can, you still have to drive to work, and that takes time. You still have to drive home. You have to run errands, stop at the gas station, buy groceries, sometimes raise a family. Kids take up a lot of time. Commuting from place to place to get things done and to run errands. You have social responsibilities. You have occupational responsibilities. You don't really have the free time you think you would to do this. This is why most people never really start enjoying life until their retirement, when they get to start doing the things that their work life and their married life had never allowed.
Retire
So
and die 5 years later.
yeah, so here I
That's some
am in
bullshit.
prison. Yeah, so here I am in prison. I don't have to do any of those things. All I have to do is get up in the morning, make me a cup of coffee, put my little headphones on, a little tiny transistor radio, open up a book and have my tablet right there. And whatever I found interesting in these books, I just wrote them down. And I ended up doing that for years and writing tens of thousands of handwritten pages before I bought an old typewriter and I started typing it all up and organizing those notes. So it took about 20 years to read 1,300 nonfiction reference books. And I have the whole list on Podia. It's a free download, and I'm always encouraging people to, hey man, you guys want to know? I got 2 downloads that are free to you. One of them is 1,300 books that I read while I was in prison. Title of the book, author, the publisher, date of publication. Another one is my picks. It's a PDF with 400 books, a list of 400 books, and the covers, what they look like. These are the 400 books by which I derived most of my education. So I have those PDFs; they're free on Podia. But this is what I did, and I had the free time to do it. And by the time I was released from prison, I already had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5 or 6 books published. But as soon as I got out, I got like 3 or 4 more published fast, and then I still have another 11 books that I published myself and put on Amazon and stuff. So it's I wouldn't take any of that back. The person I am today is a direct result of my past. And if it was a single incident that lasted a few hours, and at 17 years old, it changed the whole trajectory of my life. But 26 years later, I got out of prison at 43 years old with one of the greatest educations anybody in this world could have, because I wasn't force fed by academia what to believe. I was exposed to all the materials, and I got to ascertain the facts. I got to really look at data points and data sets and be able to I mean, it became so easy to separate fact and fiction. I wasn't programmed of what to believe to receive a diploma. I came to my conclusions basically just by logic.
Yeah, and just like I told you before the show, and with my job, I had the benefit of wearing headphones. That's my hearing protection, the earmuffs, over the ear. And man, I listen all, which I didn't get to. I don't read. I have never read as many books or the older text that you have, but I get to listen to a bunch of podcasts, Audible books. I
Right.
love it, man. Like, just love it. I've been seeking, knowledge, truth. This is my passion on all alternative subjects since 2006. But so let's go to the Bible just for a second.
Sure.
I want to stay a little bit on the simulation. Um, but and of course it's all like a spider's web. It all interconnects, and it's a jigsaw puzzle. But so with the King James Bible, chapter 14, verse 2 states, "In my father's house are many mansions." Do you think that there is a connection with that verse to where many mansions could be actually many different simulations, dimensions, and or realities?
100%. I have always held that these constructs, which are the proper Latin is simulacrum, I call it simulacrum, and I really don't care about people correcting my pronunciation. It happens every single time I say it. But
You say
the
simulacrum, right?
yeah, I say simulacrum, but that's
I
not
say the
really.
same thing. Is it just the South thing? I don't know.
This is South, man. It's South.
Anyways, go ahead, man.
Simulacrum don't even sound right to me, but that is the proper pronunciation. So anyway, it's we're not we're not we're not dealing with a single construct. We're dealing with many constructs, and they may overlap each other. This all might be running simultaneously. And we do have evidence of like fossil programming when unusual things appear in our construct that actually belong somewhere else. And then when they're properly investigated, they seem to vanish as if the construct was now aware because attention was brought to it that this doesn't belong here. So it edits it out. And then the elite are blamed, and the Smithsonian Institution is blamed, and all these different factors are blamed for removing the material when it was the construct itself that edited that data out because it didn't belong. You know, I mean, the construct is not God. The construct is not all knowing, omniscient. It's just not. It is subject to the law of diminishing returns. It is subject to the law of conservation of energy, and as such, it has to maximize the use of its energy. And to do that, it creates paradigms. Paradigms are traps for the collective. These are nodes of thinking that require very minimal energy of the construct. If it can get as many people to be conservative Republicans, then so be it. So be it, because that whole group is easy to control with just a little bit of programming. If it can get another group to be socialist Democrats, so be it, because it's easy to control them with the information that's fed them in their paradigm. If it can get a bunch of people to be, a bunch of white people to be racist against black, then so be it. It's easy to control that and continually to nurture and foster that behavior with just a little bit of energy. It's called the media. So the same way,
where energy goes, attention
yes,
flows.
yes, yes.
Or,
So,
or did I say it backwards? But
yeah,
where energy flows,
energy flows where attention goes.
there it goes.
So this construct, it doesn't deal well with the free thinker. At first, it tries to corral them back into something, but most of the world, at least 90% of the world, are the collective. These are those who are phasing in the reactive mindset. These are those who always react to external stimuli. They are governed, controlled, and educated by mainstream media. These are the people who lack in empathy, they lack in intuition, and they lack in imagination. True spiritual people are the minority. These are those who are really excelling in one or all three of the spiritual qualities: imagination, intuition, and empathy. These are the free thinkers. These are the ones that go their own way, the true pilgrims and sojourners through this existence. These are the ones the construct tries to sequester because it doesn't need you contaminating the collective. It's already got them under control. It's already got very minimal amount of energy is expended to control paradigms when that programming is already fixed. What expends the most energy is trying to create new reality tunnels for errants, for those who go their own way, because now the construct has to build a whole world. No matter where you go, the construct has to build a world around you. And if it doesn't know exactly what's on your mind and you're doing your own thing, then it has to go into overdrive in processing power. It has to read your pheromone levels. It has to anticipate the trajectory of your actions. It has to measure the rhythm of your ways. It has to do all these things because the construct cannot read your mind. It can only read your emotions. Cannot read your mind. It does not know what you're thinking unless you're dumb and you talk to yourself and you inform it what you're thinking. But other than that, it has to expend a lot of energy to basically understand what you're trying to do in order to build that world for you. And this is why when people pattern break, if somebody has lived the same life for 7 years on out, I could have said 5 years or 10 years, but 7 years on out, and went to the same job, went to the same places, went to the same grocery store, had the same schedule, and was basically stuck in this, the construct is using almost no energy because it's already got all that in its programming. It doesn't have to create anything new, but slight little nuances and variables just to make it enough believable enough that one day is a little bit different than the next. But somebody who is broke pattern, and just inexplicably all of a sudden went to a different grocery store, woke up at a different time, bought different stuff, all of a sudden the construct is going into overdrive, trying to corral that individual into something that it can process and understand. And this is why breaking pattern introduces new people to you, new situations to you, new advantages to you, new environments to you. Breaking pattern is the best thing an individual can do in their life when they're stuck.
So
When they're
breaking pattern is kind of like rewriting code.
Yes, breaking pattern is forcing the construct to create a new life and new variables in your life because it doesn't know what to do right now. You are being unpredictable, and unpredictable behavior costs it too much energy. Therefore, once it understands exactly what that soul wants, it begins to give that soul exactly that when they break pattern. But breaking pattern is the key because if you don't break pattern, you're just a part of the collective.
So I guess I need to go ahead and stake this kind of towards somewhat the beginning of this. For a lot of people that are kind of new to simulation, with your what you call it simulacrum, but
It just
so
means it's a copy of something that is real.
we don't
So
have any really a true reference. We say video game, computer simulation, but we really don't know. We know that this reality is bullshit and it's not what it truly seems to be.
right, right. Simulation is merely a frame of reference, and it's a frame of reference from our own technologically advanced perspective. In ancient times, the Aborigines had a different frame of reference. They understood dreams. They would have never imagined a computer, so they wouldn't have known what a simulation was, but they knew what a dream was. So they called this the dream time. So the ancient Hindus, they didn't know what a computer was, but they knew this was like a spider's web. They called it the web of Maya. They knew this wasn't real. Maya was illusion. But uh
Did some
yeah,
of them
this
know though, Jason?
come
Because
again.
what did certain maybe factions back then possibly know what was actually going on? Because the the theory, of course, speculating the Antikythera mechanism, they say is some type of computer related device.
It was that was 83 BC. That was only 2,000 years ago. It's nowhere near as far back as I was talking about 4,000 years, the Hindu Maya concept. But yeah, the Antikythera computer is amazing. It's differential geared mechanism that was so sophisticated 2,000 years ago that actually the technology required to even make it, all these differential gears that were super flat to calculate all the positions of everything in the sky forward and backward in time, the technology required to even construct that was far more advanced than the object itself, and the object itself is pretty impressive. So yeah, I say this on my channel frequently, but you've heard me say it. It only takes us 200 years to go from horse and buggy to Hadron Collider. So you can imagine in 6,000 years of recorded human history, since we've had things written on tablets and monuments, we've probably been technologically advanced quite a few times, and the construct has reset us several times, and even gone as far as redacting and editing history so we don't find these things out.
So I meant to say this a while ago, especially to the newcomers that are not really familiar with the simulation or they don't know what to think, so some may say that what, and you hear this a lot. I know you have. What hope do we have, and what's the point in living anymore? What's the point of all this if it's just a simulation? It's possible there is hope. Of course, I'm speculating, but if this is a simulation, Jason, maybe the point of all of this, and of course, it's just a reference point. Well, we don't know. It's something similar, or it's just a reference
I can
point.
definitely answer
But
that.
maybe the point of all this is to live, love, family, memories, explore, and so much more. While we may be stuck in what may be a simulation, maybe the only hope for future of all of us is to live the best life we can by writing the code, hence dropping seeds within the simulation. If we all constantly are writing code, rewriting code while we're here, maybe, just maybe, the future will be better for a better place for our grandchildren. Because if we are the co-creators or co-architects within the simulation, possibilities are endless. But the future depends on us right here, right now, to do the best we can and strive to be the best copy, the best version of us.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with most of that sentiment. It's on my own perspective is that we're living in two separate realities at the same time, and that we're not here to save the world. And this is the main problem that a lot of people have. A lot of people have come to the Archaix platform and they have left because they just couldn't process that information, and they ended up coming back and then fully immersing themselves into the data, and they've become my most staunch supporters. They're in my chat all the time now. They'll tell you straight out in the chat that, hey man, I'm one of those that left. I left for months, but I couldn't stay away. I came back and actually gave it a try and understood. But it's like this, man. You are an immortal being. You have been put in a construct with other immortal beings, but it's almost like a free for all. The construct itself is not going to harm you or kill you. That's the illusion. The construct is going to make you better, stronger, smarter. You're the prodigal son. You're the one who rebelled, went your own way, spent your dad's money, did everything, and then decided to come back. And now you're flowing through a construct and you're learning all these things. You're doing something that those who blindly obeyed would never do because they never left. You fully immersed into this ride, and then you're benefiting from the maturity, benefiting from the growth, benefiting from the experiences. And while you're in your avatar, which is temporal, all the memories and experiences and growth that is accrued from all your other life sims is blocked from you. But when you are divorced from your central nervous system and you are completely separated, because it is the bridge between the psyche and the simulation. When you're divorced from the central nervous system of your present avatar, that is back when you are at one with all the memories and experiences from every other avatar you've ever lived. This construct doesn't need to be saved because it's only programming. It's not the real reality. You're from the real reality and you're going back to it. But while you're here to learn. And while you're here, you are existing in two entirely separate realities at the exact same time. One of them is the personal. And in the personal, you're an immortal being who's lost his way, but you still have the powers. You're still in a co creator relationship with the construct. You can still build your reality, have freedoms, have all the things that you wish for the collective. But the truth is, you're not here to save the world because the world is illusory. That's one reality that you're living in, but you can phase out of it. We all do. Because you can phase in and out of both realities, but you can't be in both of them at the exact same time. And the other reality is the collective programming. This is dungeon programming. This is the sheep. Dungeon programming and negative default programming involve this other reality where you are living in 100% reactive mode. No originality, no creativity. You're not even living, you're just existing. And you're obeying the protocols of the construct in the collective. You're experiencing nothing but polarities. It is basically identified for you, and you have chosen where you want to be on the religious spectrum, on the political spectrum, on the economic spectrum. These polarities have been identified and delineated for you, and you've chosen among them, and you're a part of that. And you're diehard U.S. patriot, and all you can think of is go America, and you hate Democrats and socialists. You're Republican conservative. That's the life you've chosen. Therefore, the construct feeds you more and more of that data. It becomes a feedback loop. If you're Hindu and all you can think about is the Bhagavad Gita and the Mahabharata and the Puranic texts and the Tharva Veda, and you're reading all this material, this is what you've immersed in, and you're doing yoga and you take trips to India and go to these retreats and all that, this is what you've chosen. The construct feeds you more experiences and more people that are involved in that. It becomes a feedback loop for you, and it makes it easier for you to continue these activities. It's very hard to break away once you've accepted a polarity, once you have accepted a paradigm and you fully immersed in it. two separate realities you can phase back and forth. Unfortunately, the only people that ever phase back and forth are those who are either in the process of waking up or those who are already awake. And once you're already awake in the construct, that's the exodus key. The construct no longer wants you here. So the next time your avatar passes and dies, you will not be jacked into another central nervous system in an embryo of another avatar. Once you begin to wake up, the construct does not want you here. You got to go. You're going to make the exodus. You're going to get ejected. I don't believe in soul trap theory. I see absolutely no evidence of it. I've talked to a lot of people about it. I've been interviewed on channels about it, and it all sounds really good. But I don't see a shred of evidence of soul trap theory about going to the light, going to the light to danger. If you go to the light, you'll end up staying here. That those decisions are not made after death. The decisions of where you go are made while you're right here in your avatar. This supernatural trap that's waiting for you after your spirit leaves your body, and then the wrong decision puts you in the wrong place. None of that makes sense to me, because I believe in an oversoul. And I believe that these constructs obey protocols and rules from a loving oversoul, and that only a loving oversoul would ever even imagine these constructs, that all this could be contained in here, and we're not really experiencing it, and yet we believe we are, so we can reap the benefits. So when we exit the construct, we leave with the powers of acuity, the powers of perception, the powers of cognition, the powers of intuition, and the powers of empathy. And we gain these in here, and then we leave, even though it was all artificial, and we find out later it's all an illusion that we were living in. Yet when we were living it, the dangers felt real. Therefore, the rewards are real.
And for those that are in that process of waking up, but maybe it's not their time yet, maybe. And of course, I'm speculating, but to the ones that go through these mental psychosis, or they have suicidal thoughts, or they actually commit suicide, maybe some of those are, I know it's a sensitive subject. I've lost people, especially some of my military buddies from
No
suicide. But
doubt, no doubt. I'm surrounded by military. I got a bunch of military buddies. I know exactly what you're talking about.
maybe, do you think that they are possibly glitching out because they can't handle this, and it's just not their time yet, or
Okay,
what? How do you go about that?
I'm gonna address suicide because it needs to be said. All right.
It's big in the military right now. You know, I
Yes,
told you the email. I served 6 years and got a lot. I've had a couple of friends that committed suicide, and I know of a bunch of others that committed suicide also.
yeah. Well, there's no doubt it's a terrible thing, but I want to put some minds to rest, because suicide is a personal decision, whatever that soul was going through. But when it comes to the central nervous system, this bridge between the psyche and the simulation, suicide is nothing but the exit of an avatar. The special significance that people have put on suicide, saying that, oh, it's an unforgivable sin. Oh, you can't do that. Oh, you can't just pull the cord when you want to, just because things are bad. Listen, these unimaginative, unspiritual individuals who are saying these things don't understand. Suicide is just an exit from the simulacrum, no different than a natural death, than a natural somebody being murdered, somebody having a car accident, somebody dying by a bullet in warfare. They're all exits from the central nervous system. Every single one of these incidents are the same. It doesn't matter the method of death. There is a difference, though, and I go into detail on two of my videos on my channel because it's a sensitive deal. But on my channel, I have two videos about the origin of demons and the origin of poltergeists, ghosts, specters, disembodied spirits. Because on the outside of the construct, we are still attached to our real avatars. But on the outside of the construct, if somebody was to unplug someone's avatar while their actual personality is still in the construct, then that personality would not be free to go into the next central nervous system when it's available. Now it's trapped. There is no bridge between the psyche and the simulation then. They are in the construct as a disembodied personality. And what do you think someone is going to act or feel like when they are trapped in the holography and they know they can't get out right now? They're going to get destitute. Then they're going to get very, very angry.
Mm-hmm.
Demon, yeah, poltergeist, ghosts, demons. These things, these experiences, they're always met with hostility and anger. These spirits are in a rage. Wouldn't you be in a rage if you were helpless experiencing this whole thing, which may only be 19 minutes long? This whole thing, we've lived 43 lives in 19 minutes because this is a time dilation. And we already know that time can be compressed because time is data. And we know that even in our technologically advanced civilization today, you can send me 5 movies all compressed into a Google zip file, and you can send them to me. And just because you compressed all that into a very short file and you send it to me in an email, and then on my end, I receive the zip file, which has all 5 long movies, and then turn around and I'll just reprocess it on my computer, unfold the zip, and all 5 movies are here. But we just compressed reality and then conveyed it. The exact same principle applies. The whole time we're here, it's no risk to our real bodies because we're only here for a very short period of time. To us, it feels like we're here for a very long time.
And maybe a lot of these people that are committing suicide, maybe, you know, a certain percentage of them, maybe they know that they know that they may not be truly awakened to this reality, but they know something's not right. They
Well,
know
so
that this
right.
isn't this, they know that this isn't the true base reality. They know that something's totally different. Something's just, they know that this isn't the natural state.
Trauma is a part of this reality because trauma also heals. Trauma also teaches us things. And yes, if these things didn't exist in the construct, then the construct itself would not be believable. So there's going to be negative default programming. There's going to be programming here that is very convincing so much that even immortals become destitute and they off their avatars. No doubt. But my point is that even suicide inside the construct does not have the repercussions that people like to claim because this is a construct. All they're doing is dying like anybody else. The only ones that suffer something very different is when their avatars are unplugged from the outside of the construct and they themselves become trapped here until the next Exodus node when a lot of souls get to eject and get out of the construct, which is not all the time. This construct has a pulse, it has a heartbeat, and I've identified it. I have 82 videos on this. It's called the Phoenix phenomenon. Every 138 years, edits, read all these historical redactions. Edits happen in our reality. Populations appear, disappear. Cities are empty. Mud floods, volcanic resurfacing, cataclysms, tsunamis, all kinds of things happen. And yet, during this process, there's editing going on because this construct masks and covers all these edits to the programs under the guise of natural disasters. It's very clever at what it does. So it's a
Well,
suicide is not something near as negative as people think. I'm not encouraging it, but what I'm saying, it does not have those eternal connotations that people are often, especially religionists, are often
yeah,
trying to convey.
a lot of that does come from that religious programming. And before we go too much into like the Phoenix phenomenon and other things, vapor canopy and some other your other research, you said one of my notes, of course, you were just talking about. That's why I was kind of smiling. So if this artificial constructed simulated reality exists, and I'm leaning towards it, especially through people like you and others, that it does, and we are kind of plugged in like that in the matrix. Do you think when we are in sleep mode, we're actually unplugging from the simulation and real base, the true base reality, but our avatars here in this simulation go into like autopilot mode, while the real us has unplugged and doing what the hell ever it wants to do in the desert of the real, like that, the Matrix. And maybe when we dream, sometimes it's actual residual overlapped memories from the true base reality meat suits.
Could be. I don't know much. I don't dream, and I've told people on my channel that many times. I have dreamed in the past, very few times, but I'm just not a dreamer. Um, I do know that. I mean, those are good questions. A lot of it goes into the theoretical. I just can't really. I just don't really know. But
A lot of
what?
times when you do go down that rabbit hole, Jason, I've watched pretty good bit of your videos. A lot of times when you do go down that rabbit hole of just what your gut feeling and
Yeah,
speculation,
yeah.
a lot of that's some good stuff because you may, with your gut feeling or your speculation, may help somebody else out that's on their own journey and their own path. And
No
then
doubt.
like, boom, that goes perfectly. It fits. It's painting a better picture. Even though, let's say you or I may not understand that speculation, or it's just a gut feeling, or it's just speculation on our end.
Agree.
But that speculation and gut feeling may put somebody else on a better journey and help them paint a better picture. You know,
Oh, I agree. I 100% I agree. But your avatar is a part of the construct. This physical body of Jason right here you're seeing, it is absolutely 100% a part of the very environment that I'm in. What's not a part of that is my personality. Bodies are nothing. There's only like 70 different body types. All around. You can change the position of the eyes a little bit, and the nose and the lips and the mouth and bone structure in the face, but there's about 70 different types of faces in the world. There's not a lot of variety. The variety comes in different hair colors and just uh it's just when you look at a whole crowd of people, the pattern recognition ability of the human mind automatically shows so many people who look alike. And it's not that we're cloned. It's just how many variations are you really going to find? So
there's only so many programs that the architect probably made, or something like that. I don't know.
right. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I got some buddies that look very close to you. They look very close to you.
Yeah.
Hairline, they don't have this that going on down here, but I'm just saying it. It's when you go to sleep and you go into REM, the there doesn't seem to be any evidence whatsoever that the soul is anywhere near the avatar anymore. Now, it's still there in sleep, but when you go into REM, it's almost as if the 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 brain, the entire central nervous system is receiving its instructions for the next wake period. The construct is downloading all this data, all this material, because it's building for you these reality constructs. And it's not going to be one, it's going to have 30 to 300 different reality tunnels built because it doesn't know exactly which way you're going to go. And it makes it so much easier. It's conservation of energy to get this and program it into you, because every time we go to sleep, which is something that we have to do, the construct actually is allowed to explore us and go in there. When the immortal soul is housed inside the avatar, the construct is external to us. It's on the outside. But once we go to sleep, the construct takes back over its property, which is the body and the central nervous system, and it downloads all its programs, and it uploads any data that was hidden in there that you tried to hide from it. And this is how it learns from us, because it cannot read our minds. The reason it can't read our minds is because the brain isn't anything you've been taught in school. You were taught that thoughts originate in the brain. That is not true. We live in a thought field. And there are men like P.D. Alspinski 100 years ago, and in the last 10 years, Ishak Bentov, who's published books about the thought field and how the brain only produces the necessary chemicals to create hormonal responses according to what thoughts that enter it. Those thoughts don't come from the brain. Thoughts come from the immortal within. Thoughts come from the spirit. And the thought field is an experiment that anybody can do. Anyone can just sit quietly in a dark room and try to clear their mind consciously in a dark room, just very, very consciously. Try to erase every thought in your mind and try to think nothing. And I'm going to tell you what's going to happen very, very rapidly. If you succeed at it very rapidly, you're going to be in a dark room and you're going to start feeling like you're moving, but you're not. You're going to tap instantly into a thought field, and all kinds of thoughts and images and all are going to start passing through your mind. And you're going to realize it's in the field. It's in the field. All these thoughts are in the field, and the spirit is able to pick up on these things and build. And when the spirit thinks of something and then feels happy, yeah, excited, I'm going to do this, what I'm going to do in a couple hours, I'm going to go to the swimming pool, that's what I'm going to do, and you feel a little bit excited about it, the brain produces the necessary hormone that comports with that thought. When it does that, the construct instantly knows you're happy about something, you're looking forward to something, and it's paying attention. And then it can extrapolate by hundreds of thousands of different ways that we can't even detect based off our behavior because it's been studying us our entire life. It can extrapolate basically the trajectory of our thoughts and where we're going, reading our hormone levels, basically running protocols to know what we did in whatever situation, hundreds of thousands of sims ago or whatever. It can run all this in real time, and it can basically predict our behavior. It's very good at that. It builds worlds and reality tunnels for us. That's what it's doing. But the problem is, sleep is the great mystery. I would have to agree with you. When we go into REM, not just regular sleep, but once we hit the REM sleep, that's when I believe that the actual immortal is no longer in the avatar, which allows the construct to do what it needs to do.
And just like in the Matrix, uh, who was it? Cypher that said, I know this steak doesn't exist. I know when I put it in my mouth, the Matrix is telling my brain that it is juicy and delicious. Ignorance is bliss. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
a lot of truth, man. So with you kind of mentioned it with NPCs, where do they fit into this whole simulation uh reality? Because obviously we meet people every day, especially if you're awake and aware. You see people every day that blank expressions, there's nothing there. They have no soul, no consciousness. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, where do they fit into the code, the program within
Okay.
this
Well, I
reality?
can,
What
first of
what
all,
what's their objective?
you're told that there are 7 billion souls in this world, but you can't prove that. You don't know that. There's no way to know that. So in programming, it would be very believable if your world was always populated from your perspective, which would not even take a lot. It wouldn't even take a lot of processing power because most of the construct you're familiar with is already known to you. Therefore, once it's already known to you, it's already stored as memory in your field. Therefore, the construct doesn't even have to necessarily build anything. You already know what Walmart looks like. You already know what the mall looks like. You already know what the beach looks like. So when you visit these places, it doesn't really have to build. All it has to do is reinitiate old programming. The programming already exists. So you're experiencing, well, but what it has to do is populate every environment you go in with enough believability that you're never going to sense something's off. And the way it does that is it will populate aisles of Walmart and lines in Walmart. In the distance, you'll see people doing their own thing. But sometimes you might get this intuition might come up in you that somebody further away isn't really real or something's wrong about him, and you'll hone in on them. The construct knows exactly what you're doing, and before you can even get to that individual will duck into an aisle or look like innocuous, just go around a corner, and then you can search the rest of that store and you'll never find that person. And before you can get to that person, a worker with a cart might come in front of you. There are many people subject to dungeon programming where the construct absolutely controls them. I'll give you an example of this. The construct has controlled you many times, and you're going to admit to me that I'm right. I'm going to tell you how. How many times have you driven down the freeway and you were so lost in thought that you zoned out and you were zombie driving for a long period of time and you know you weren't paying attention to the road, exits, other vehicles. You were zombie driving and then you snapped out of it and you're no longer in that deep thought and now you're at your destination. I've done it
Mm-hmm.
many times.
Yeah.
Many times I'll be deep in thought and then something takes over and makes sure that I'm safe on my trip. I don't run into other drivers. I stay in my lanes. I've been zombie driving. I do it a lot. I've done it many times. I know what it is. The
Mm-hmm.
construct has taken over because I went into default mode. Once I go into default mode, there's absolutely no resistance and it takes me over. There are people that do this every day not knowing they're doing it, and the construct takes them over. And then they wake up with a Starbucks coffee in their hand, sitting in Starbucks, and they're like, shit. How did I
What was
even
that skier? Well, what was that skier last year, year before, I believe, or something like that? That went missing or something like that. I think it was a skier.
oh, I don't know.
Went all the way from the East Coast to the Colorado. I'm paraphrasing it. It's something along the lines.
Yeah, I don't know,
He went
man.
from the East Coast all the way to the Colorado Rockies, and he don't know how he got there.
Wow. Well,
And
I've done it. I've done it across Texas. Oh, I've zombie driven over an hour before, but it's just one example. It's just one example of the mind being so hyper focused on something else, the avatar just goes into default. Once the avatar goes into default, the construct takes over. It's got no problem doing that. That's what it wants to do anyway, and it just takes over. And um, this I can't remember why I'm providing this example. What you asked me? The NPCs. NPCs.
NPCs, yep.
Oh, NPCs come in two ways. Sometimes they're pure programming. They're phantasms. They don't exist. An NPC doesn't have to be a person. It can also be an object. It can be an inanimate object that suddenly moves and gets your attention, even though in the programming you saw a book fall off a table or something, but there's always going to be some evidence left behind that will make you think, well, maybe it was the other book was leaning against it or something, or maybe it was too close to the edge. It'll get you intellectualizing over something when the whole real reason the book fell was because it was in your periphery and it would draw your attention. And by doing that, you didn't see this girl over here who really needed your help. So yes, the construct is very, very clever. NPCs are real. They're not easy to detect. Intuition is gonna be your guide in those incidents. But
What
uh,
I think about NPCs, I didn't mean to cut you off, Jason.
well, NPCs can also be vehicles. A vehicle that gets in your way so you can't see something that you really needed to see. But yeah, the NPCs, if they know if you're vibrating on a frequency where you're going to wake up almost anybody you come into contact with, because people are going to be feeling your energy and you're going to be flipping their polarity and you're going to make them phase out of the collective while they're in your presence, because some people have that dynamic field, that auric field, that when you're in contact with those people, it doesn't matter how lost into the collective you are, just being in their presence, listening to their voice completely phases them out. They're vibrating on your frequency. And then when you leave and depart 30 minutes later, they go back into default mode because they no longer have they no longer have the benefit of your contact. This is also very popular as well. But NPCs can be vehicles, they can be birds, they can be anything that will distract or populate an area around you if there isn't a lot going on. Anything to keep you from thinking that the world is artificial.
and to go on top of that, for humans that are NPCs, one thing that, because of course we keep coming in this reality, we die, we're reincarnated, we're back in.
Mm-hmm.
So if we are in this endless loop of reincarnation, maybe that's why there might actually be non-player characters in this artificial like simulated reality, because these non-player characters have reincarnated so many times to where they are burnt out deep within their subconscious from all the endless looping of being reincarnated for thousands of years. And that non-player character couldn't handle the load anymore, to where their spirit battery just doesn't have any more juice left and walk around this reality like a lifeless zombie. Maybe that's something, you know what I mean? I know, of course, I'm speculating here, but we know that there's NPCs out there, that people that there's nothing there, there's no soul, there's no consciousness, and maybe they just burnt out. Thousands of years being reincarnated, and they couldn't handle the load. They don't have any more spirit juice left. You know what I mean?
I get it, and I've addressed this on my channel. A lot of the collective will get cycled back. Now, you said earlier that you're familiar with 2178.
Yes.
Familiar with the collapse of the simulacrum itself. The simulacrum protocols 2178, 138 years after 2040. So this whole thing, this programming, it's all going to collapse. And those who have phased into the construct, they will be recycled with the construct. Those who are living highly individualized, souls. Remember, I told you there's only two realities here. You're going to be a part of one or the other, but never both at the same time. Now, if you're highly individualized, if you're an errant, an errant is just a term that I use to explain a personality that is going their own way, someone who has defied dungeon programming, someone who is immune to negative default programming. The construct is not able to throw all the traps out because the errant will always go another way. It can anticipate the moves of the construct, and this person builds their own world. Well, this person has phased out of the collective. So when this programming reboots and all these souls that are stuck in this construct go back to the beginning, all these historical routines. Remember, I told you these are historical templates in the past. These are pieces of programming called the Sumerian civilization. Here's the next one, Akkadian civilization. Here's the next one, Near Eastern Elamite, Urartu, and Amuru civilization. The next one, Egyptian, and then Bronze Age, Technolithic, the Heliolithic Maritime Empire. These are all templates, Phoenician, coming all the way closer and closer to, Renaissance, Middle Ages, Renaissance, after the Dark Ages. These are historical templates that these souls have to live through all over again in multiple life sims. But this time, they're probably going to be doing a lot better. Some of them. And there will always be people waking up as all this progress goes forward because the construct is shedding. It's shedding. I do not believe that the oversoul has any intent on any of his immortals being lost.
Explain the oversoul real quick, just for the newcomers.
Okay, I was raised into a Southern Baptist family, but I'm not Southern Baptist anymore because I don't believe that one denomination of the church, I don't believe that one religion, one people, ideology, philosophy, one continent, I don't believe anybody in the world is able to accurately define what God is from inside the construct. Therefore, I am content with a creator being. Whether it's a creatrix, a female, or a male, it doesn't matter to me. I call this individual the oversoul. And I believe that the oversoul would have never imagined such a scenario as to put immortals into an artificial world to suffer artificial dangers, had it not been in the intent to make sure that its offspring, we immortals, were going to be okay, even though we don't feel we are while we're in here. So, this being the case, the immortal, the oversoul is not like, give me an example. I say this a lot on my channel. There was no creation. This past participle description doesn't fit for a true creator because the oversoul would be eternal. And an eternal being does not stop creating, does not stop doing. Therefore, the creation event is not a singularity, it is a continuum. And because the creation is a continuum, that necessitates more and more immortals born into the construct that can perform more and more duties for the oversoul as more and more universes are created. We don't know what our roles are in the future, but they're a lot better than what they are now. We're in a spiritual training ground, and we're going to have to earn the eternal avatar that we have waiting for us. But the oversoul is not going to have any of his lost. The whole concept and idea of hell is bullshit. That's all religionist programming. It's dungeon programming. The real issue here is the oversoul has us going through this jungle gym spiritual training program. It doesn't care how many life sims we have to live through to get it right. Because in the end, all the time in the world to grow and mature doesn't matter because we're eternal beings. And when we get ejected out of this construct, we will inherit whatever it is that we are supposed to inherit. Some of us will go to our appointments. Others will go into other constructs to grow even more and to inherit something else.
What's the
So
end result, Jason? Is it to try to perfect the very best version of our copy?
I believe that I believe that a creator oversoul can do nothing but create other creator oversouls, and that's the end result. I
Well
believe that's
said.
who I believe that's who you are and who I am, and we have to go through all this in order to in order to become. That's what it's all about, becoming. We got to become this. We're not that yet, but we got to become that. And that means we may have to go through a bunch of constructs before suddenly we're ejected from a construct, and the inheritance we receive then is the ability to be an oversoul and create our own reality, our own universe, and then start shedding and creating our own immortal children.
And you brought up religion. um, so before I read what I have here, me, you, a lot of other people in this alternative community that do our own research and stuff, we look in the Bible for the text, especially Genesis and Revelations and things like that, and the books that aren't in the Bible. But
Right.
how can we truly trust? It's all hypothetical, but how can we truly trust the authors and those who put the Bible together? How do we know that they weren't NPCs that were created by the simulation to mislead and misdirect the world for thousands of years? If that's the case, Jason, that means that religion has been hijacked by the simulacrum, architect, algorithm, or anything else within the simulation. Hence, how can we truly trust the gospel while going down this lonely road of truth and understanding?
A true spiritual being does not need religion. Religion comes from the Latin to bind again, meaning there is an implication that before religion you were free. But the adoption of religion actually enslaves you. This is dungeon programming. And the Bible is not the good book like you think. It is a book that possesses both good and evil, and it even admits that. And from the very beginning, before Adam and Eve ever sinned, there was already in Eden a tree of knowledge of good and evil. Evil pre exists mankind's fall, the great fall of man. These clues are all put throughout the scriptures that I have one playlist called the Dark Scriptures. It's a lot of people's favorite playlist, but I go through the entire Bible explaining what was put in there to be deceitful, what was put in there as factual, and what is put in there as absolute metaphor and parable. Because even Jesus did not tell us the truth. Jesus spoke in parables, and parables are images of truth. Just like these avatars aren't really us. In the book of Genesis, these avatars are called images of God. They're not God, and they're not us. They are a facsimile. Just like Jesus' teachings, like the prodigal son and many other parables. These are images of truth, not the direct truth. Over and over and over, we have the symbolism throughout the scriptures that basically tells us that we're living through programming. It tells us how to discern fact from fiction. It's all in the Bible. The Bible is a supernatural book, but it's not all good. But it's a book of good and evil. Parts of it were written by the oversoul as instructions, and there's a lot of it that was written by a demon. And it's very clear to see which is which once you're given the cipher. The cipher, that's what's in my dark scriptures playlist. This is what I show, that there are two agreements in the scriptures, and it's up to you. It's up basically up to you to choose which one, because you can't have both. But one of them is the Abrahamic covenant, and which is open to all, and one of them is the covenant of Yahweh, and it's a totally different covenant, and it's by a totally different thing.
And
So,
you ever, and if you say the Bible, what does that sound like? Bible, Babel,
mhm,
Babel,
mhm.
Tower of Babel, Bible.
You know
You
where
know,
Babel comes from? What it means?
go ahead.
Before it was called Babel, in the Akkadian cuneiform, it's Babili, and they built a tower called Babili, which means the gate of God.
Hmm. What were they? What is, because we in this alternative community, we hear a lot of things. What were they trying to reach? You know what I mean? Like we
Okay,
always,
okay,
because
from
a
a
lot of that's
primitive,
metaphorical, you know,
yeah, from listen, it was a real construction project, but they weren't trying to reach heaven.
immortality.
That, that isn't no. That's an Listen. This is a primitive. When you have a technologically advanced civilization embarking on an architectural project, and that the size of the machine they're building is heroic, it is gigantic. That later generations, when they tell the story after they've been reset, post reset culture is now cargo cult culture. They see everything through primitive eyes. Everything becomes mythology. They don't understand technology. Now that structure isn't the machine that their predecessors were building. Now it becomes a tower. And what they were trying to do involved the sky. But to later generations that have lost all advanced frames of reference in their primitivism, they thought, well, they built that because it's so tall, they must have been trying to invade heaven. They must have been trying to get to heaven. That wasn't it at all. They were trying to escape the construct because they understood the programming. And this is what is said in Genesis. There are personalities talking to themselves, looking down on the tower project, and they said, behold, the man has become as one of us, and there is nothing by virtue of imagination that mankind will not be able to accomplish. So they scattered man's languages. How do you take one people who are communicating in one language and then suddenly create 70 different languages to disrupt an architectural project? You can't,
Upload a
unless
program into the simulation.
exactly, you can't unless all of this is programming.
Yeah,
It's just like the Hunger Games. If they
yeah, yeah.
if they're sitting in a they're sitting in a console, and they're sitting there typing in phenomena. If they want
Yeah.
fog, they type it in, and fog appears on the inside of the dome. In this case, it was a battle dome, and they're all fighting in the Hunger Games. If they need a monster, they just type one in, and it's very real to those inside the dome.
A lot of
And
those things back then could have been seen as heavenly figures, or miraculous apparitions or whatever too, you know, that
I
just
agree.
appeared.
Oh yes, there's no
Man.
doubt, no doubt.
So let's move forward. With the We haven't really, what it all interconnects. And I try to, it's hard when I trying to prepare for this interview when I have you on, because your knowledge is so vast. And and Jason, or Archaix, he has a bunch of videos, and I suggest to go to the bottom of the playlist and just try to work your way up. Try to work your way up. But he still talks about things that he talked about a couple years ago in his previous videos. But I'm just telling you, like, it's hard. You can get lost quick. So with the Phoenix phenomenon, it has been here every 138 years on and off for 58 centuries, correct? So since
58 centuries, yes.
so that's
We have
58.
we have records going back 58 centuries. Almost every 138 years, this phenomenon happens somewhere in the world.
So what was Earth like before the Phoenix phenomenon? What was that catalyst that created this phenomena, and why?
Okay, I can't answer what created the Phoenix phenomenon, although I
With
can.
all your research, what does your gut tell you?
My gut tell me that it was a weapon from the beginning, that somebody else during the vapor canopy civilization, which was technologically advanced. You know of this in the Genesis narrative. This is the pre-flood world. It's 1,656 years. Now, we are given a primitive version of events in the Bible. However, in ancient records, we're given a technologically advanced version of events of the vapor canopy world. And the building of the Great Pyramid in Egypt was one of these structures that was designed, and it totally 100% encodes the Phoenix phenomenon. It also has all the physics constants encoded within it. The 138-year patterning is found in the rectilinear dimensions of the Great Pyramid, and I've shown this. I have like a 70 video playlist on the Great Pyramid showing exactly this. And these measurements that I use are Sir Flinders Petrie's. They're the only ones accepted by the scientific community and Egyptologists. They were done to the thousandths of an inch using a micrometer. And when you go by these measurements, you see this patterning of 138 all throughout the structure. I believe that from the beginning, the Great Pyramid was designed to be a weapon. However, I also believe that some of these traditions, Zechariah Sitchin has mentioned them as well. The theft of the tablets of destinies by some figure named Zu, and some other traditions. We have evidence that this structure, when it was operating before the flood, was hijacked. The programming was hijacked, and somebody uploaded basically a new protocol. And now the Phoenix has become discriminating. And what I mean is it targets fear-based biological organisms, and it ignores those who do not fear it. And this was weaponized by many people in the ancient past who used the Phoenix phenomenon to their advantage when they invaded foreign territories. And I've documented these as well, where armies used it to their advantage, knowing that the sun was about to darken, knowing that the moon was about to turn red, knowing that rocks were about to fall from the sky, earthquakes were going to be seen, tsunamis were going to happen, and red dust was going to rain from the skies. And they timed their battles and attacks and sieges to comport with this, because the enemy would always believe that there were sorcerers and warlocks in the attacking army, and the defending armies would lose all morale because it looked like even the gods were favoring the attackers. So the Phoenix phenomenon is very unusual, but what is predictable is its appearance. It appeared in 583 BC, and it was predicted by Thales of Miletus. Before that, it appeared in 721 BC, and many ancient authors talk about it. Before that, it had appeared and destroyed the entire Bronze Age world in 1687 BC, and every Bronze Age institution vanished. And there are many historians that talk about it, especially W.J. Perry in his book Children of the Gods. Children of the Sun. He even dates it precisely. But it happened again in 1549 BC in the Cyclades region, was destroyed 1411 BC in Canaan and Israel, and the Israelites even predicted it, its appearance when they attacked the Canaanites. It appeared again in 1135 BC and started a 300-year-old Mediterranean dark age where there's no history, there's nothing. And the next time the Greeks even surface, it's 3 centuries later, and it's the works of Homer and Iliad and Odyssey and Hesiod and Theognis. It's crazy. This when it happens, there are these massive resets. Even the Dark Ages was caused by a Phoenix phenomenon episode in 522 AD, which was covered up by the Catholic Church. They even invented a whole new calendar to hide the Phoenix cycle of 552-year periods, which is 138 times 4. And I have a video citing those original documents where they admit that they invented the calendar we're under today, the Anno Domini AD calendar. The AD BC system was created to hide the Phoenix phenomenon, because the Catholic Church wanted to be the only one that had possession of this knowledge. So they invented a calendar, and they backdated it all the way to 2 BC when they thought Jesus was born. And
Has this red dust been going back ever since the beginning of the Phoenix phenomenon?
Oh yeah, even way before the flood. Yeah, in 3895 BC, the Adam and Eve reset. It was also red mud, red dust.
The reason why I asked that, I'm sorry, Jason, but the reason why I asked that is because there's an abundance. We live in the South. There's an abundance of red dirt in America, especially here in the South. Neighborhoods, businesses, and just about everything else is built with this red dirt.
Yep.
So, as a foundation before all buildings and things, mostly are the foundation is you put the red dirt down first. So, with this abundance of red dirt, is this red dirt actually or possibly from the Phoenix event that you talk about with the red dust? And after countless Phoenix events from the past all the way to 1902, the last Phoenix event, uh, the accumulation of red dirt was in abundance. So, with all this red dirt that is used before used before buildings and construction is because it compacts very well. Um, it compacts very well because this red dirt is very fine in nature. Hence, if the skies were filled with this red dirt that you talked about, I see it one and the same. Possibly there might be a connection there because we have a lot of red dirt, man.
There's a lot of red dirt in New Mexico and Arizona, all over Australia. In 1902, it blanketed almost the entire world. It's easy to find. There are people who sent me emails from all over the world after I did four videos on 1902. People have been sending me microfished uh, articles, things they find in their local newspapers from all around the world. It's really interesting how in the national news this was hardly mentioned at all. But in the local news from all over the world, all the small papers are all reporting all the red fallout in 1902 that happened in the month of May, June, and July. So and it was in May of 1902 that a strange unknown red star appeared in the sky, and ship captains have left in their logbooks, and Charles Fort found and published some of these where ship captains said that their ships almost capsized, so they had to call all hands on deck, even those men that were sleeping in the berths, to get on deck and just sweep off all the red dust that was falling out of the sky.
You
In
think
some
there's a connection? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jason. I'm sorry.
in some areas of high humidity, it wasn't dust, it was red mud, and it almost sank ships. It was 50 tons of red dust per square mile in Australia alone. But the red dust fell over the entire world in 1902. And it was during this period from 1764, with 138 years earlier, when Phoenix was seen by astronomer Hoffman and 500,000 Europeans. During this period between these two Phoenix visitations in 1764 and 1902 is when most of the red brick buildings that we have all over Europe, Australia, and the United States, red brick buildings are all from the same time period, and I believe most of that was just taken off the surface. They just scooped up all that red dust and mixed it in with their clays and stuff.
So you talk about the angel of death, hence referring to the Phoenix phenomenon. That
Right.
kind of makes sense if the Phoenix phenomenon is the angel of death, and to tie that with the red dust or red dirt that covered the skies, just like the red dirt, you can't. I got a vegetable garden. You can't plant anything in red dirt. It's basically dead. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Do you think that there's a also, do you think that this red star-like object, do you think it possibly could have been Mars? Because Mars is the red planet. Hence,
No,
maybe
no,
maybe maybe something came through the
astronomers know Mars too well.
yeah.
Astronomers know Mars way too well. Even in 1902, Mars was already a boring topic in astronomy.
Do you think it was another planetary type body
No,
or
I
something
believe
else
we live in. I
mysterious?
believe no, I believe the entire sky is a simulated construct. It is a multi-tiered hologram, and I don't believe there's anything physical in the sky. This phenomena of red dust is a programmed delusion. It's just as illusory as we are.
Just like in the Hunger Games.
Just like in the Hunger
Yeah.
Games, we are in a controlled environment, and yeah, that's why the Phoenix phenomenon. I used to believe it was an intruder planet. I used to buy into that and all that, but it can't be. And the reason it can't be is pure arithmetic. There is no object in the heavens that can be documented over thousands of years of time and always appear every 138 years, not only in 1 month, but in May 15th, 16th, or 17th every time. That type of regularity is it's beyond. There's nothing in nature that has that regularity. This would be something technological. This is something This is programming. And proof that it is programming is that on my channel, I show multiple videos, multiple data sets, source materials, charts, everybody can verify, and they have, that we know that the ancient year was 360 days. And we also have multiple videos, multiple data sets, charts, and source materials to show that in the year 713 BC, something happened in the sky and the sun retrograded 10 degrees. And ever since that event, we have a 365.24 year. And we have all the data sets and source materials to show that every culture in the world in the 7th and 6th century changed their calendars from 360 days to 365. So if we can show all this is true, and yet the Phoenix phenomenon still appears unbroken over that period, every 138 years in the month of May, we're no longer dealing with a physical world, we're dealing with programming.
So I know you talk about how the sky is just a simulation. You don't really think that there's anything out there. But just for a hypothetical statement, I guess, maybe one reason why things here on Earth were enormous in size and lifespan and etc. back in the ancient days is because, and longevity, it's because Earth was closer to the sun, the source, whatever that might be feeling the simulation. First off, the sun is our life force. It's our essence. Many say that the sun is the source of all creation. Sun, S-U-N. Son, S-O-N. Son, son of God. S-O-N, son of God. Son of God, S-U-N. With all that being said, maybe we were closer to the sun back in ancient days, which heated up Earth, creating this vapor canopy that you talk about, to a degree where the conditions within Earth's biosphere acted in similar ways to that of a greenhouse effect, which will create more oxygen in the air, make it more abundance. You'll have taller beings, more, everything is just in abundance. So, and taller creatures, life expectancy, etc. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't know if it was because the Earth was closer to the sun. I don't know. To me, the sun seems,
Whatever it is, it's a source of energy. Whatever it is.
yeah, it's definitely that. It's but plants don't need that yellow solar direct light. They don't need it. As a matter of fact, it's harmful to them. Let me explain. Under the vapor canopy world, which is known as the dark midnight period, it is the web of spider grandmother. During this period of the pre-flood world, before the rainbow was possible, in Genesis it says there was no rain, and that a dew watered the land every morning and every evening. And this is exactly what you would expect in a vapor canopy world. And for anybody who's unfamiliar with a vapor canopy world, the astronomical model of Venus is of a vapor canopy world. I'm not saying Venus is a real planet. I am saying the astronomical model that's been perpetuated by NASA of the planet Venus is of a vapor canopy world. That's what their data shows. Now, I believe their data is actually just the study of optics. I don't believe there's anything physical up there other than a barrier that keeps us in. But anyway, I digress. When a vapor canopy world, all it takes, well, first of all, to form a vapor canopy, all it takes is a bunch of volcanoes spewing fine volcanic dust into the lower mesosphere. The mesosphere is a layer of the atmosphere that is like several miles thick and it's just water droplets. This is called the mesosphere. The volcanic dust will blanket the bottom of the mesosphere at the same time as the Phoenix red dust fallout blankets the top part of the mesosphere. Once there's enough saturation and the greenhouse gases build up, atmospheric pressure increases, ambient radiation from all the volcanic outgassing is absolutely beneficial and creates growth. This is why around volcanoes, animals, plants, and insects grow huge. This is why in 1902, two scientists grew 2 inches the 6 months they were out at Mount Pelee and Martinique after the city was destroyed and 35,000 people were incinerated in minutes. These two scientists were studying the volcano and they were there for 6 months and they grew 2 inches tall. These men were 58 years old and 62 or 63. So this ambient radiation is a very real thing, coupled with the ultraviolet light under the vapor canopy, because direct sunlight no longer exists. This filtering of light is actually beneficial and it helps with photosynthesis. It's a lot easier on the plants. They grow faster, they get more nutrients. Now we have this amazing megaflora. It's everywhere. Megaflora feeds megafauna. So we have giant reptiles, giant amphibians, and these are in turn the food sources. These are in turn also feeding on gigantic insects. So this vapor canopy world has everything growing to much bigger sizes, and they can grow to heroic sizes because as the vapor canopy continues, the atmospheric pressure increases and the oxygen content becomes more and more dense. And the more oxygen that a creature can breathe, the larger it can grow. This is why when the vapor canopy collapsed, known as the day the sky fell, recorded in the Bible as the great flood event, this is why the rainbow was the first thing to appear, the prismatic light, because the vapor canopy was water droplets. It was a canopy that just fell. And when it fell, the rainbow appeared for the first time in Genesis. Now we have a world where the atmospheric pressure has completely changed and the oxygen is gone. And these giant creatures suffocated. They didn't just drown, they suffocated. They couldn't breathe they couldn't breathe. All these giant around, I'm talking about around the tropics, they just suffocated. We already know what happened to them in the far north and far south. That's easy. There's still 2.5 million mammoths perfectly preserved in the permafrost of Siberia. There's a lot more in Australia. Three-toed sloth, giant armadillos, huge woolly rhinoceroses. All of them are still stuck in the permafrost. And we've always been told these are ice age creatures, and none of that's true. It's now understood that the hair on woolly rhinoceros and woolly mammoths was to cool them down, not keep them warm. It is the exact same hair on the long-haired ape in the jungles of India. Some of the most hairiest creatures in the world are in the hottest places in the world because with their sweat glands, that hair actually serves to cool the body. And this is what scientists have now found out about the mastodon, the mammoth, and the woolly rhinoceros. These were tropical to temperate creatures, and they're frozen to death in the far north with buttercups and apple trees and all kinds of stuff sticking out of the permafrost. Had nothing to do with an ice age.
Flash
But
frozen.
yeah. It's when the vapor canopy collapsed, all that moisture had to go somewhere. And because it's far away from the tropics, it flash froze that whole area quick. The ice packs, all that stuff, it was created in minutes and hours. It wasn't created over hundreds of thousands of days. The whole ice age narrative is absolute BS. On my channel, I've got like 5 videos that go deep on the ice age. All that's BS. That scientific data doesn't exist. It was made up. Even today, there are still 60 different theories as to how an ice age is possible because the far northern and southern extremities have zero humidity. That's why it only snows about half an inch a year. So the only thing that it can account for the moisture actually getting there is a vapor canopy that collapsed. So and the fact that the vapor canopy disappears and then the extremities melt and the ocean levels rise periodically is absolutely proven in the fact that we have 500 and 600-year-old maps today. I've shown them on my channel that show Iceland, Greenland, and Antarctica absolutely free of ice. Shows the rivers, the mountains, even the altitudes of mountains are marked on the Orontes Phineas map. This wouldn't be possible if ice ages were real. It can't be possible. But what is possible is that we get vapor canopies from time to time every few thousand years. And when they thaw out, navigators are able to go to Antarctica and map it. They can map the valleys. They can't do that today. Why? Because it's covered in 2-mile high ice caps, packed snow and ice. but it couldn't have been 600 years ago when they made those maps. So yeah, so this is what I explore in Archaix. And Archaix, I got videos and all this stuff showing how almost everything we've been told by the scientific community is an absolute lie.
So we got a few more minutes left here. So let's go to you talk about so much, man. So many things, vast amounts of knowledge within that head of yours, man. A lot. But so is there let's go to orphan trains, underground bases, and missing people for a moment with the last few minutes we have left. So is there a connection with the children's crusades, orphan trains, and missing people of today? Because I feel like the elites have been abducting children for their repopulation after the Phoenix event, uh, probably for a long time, hundreds or thousands of years. And it seems like this has been going on, like I said, for as long as we can recall, at least according to certain historical documents. So with that being said, Jason, do you think that that's why so many people go missing in national parks and go missing just randomly in everyday normal life? It's because the elites are preparing for the next Phoenix event and they know that they will need to repopulate after what they call the reset or the Phoenix event comes. And maybe there's a connection with these underground bases and these thousands of missing people each year. Because after the Phoenix event, they will need to release them from the underground bases to replenish the earth in 2040.
Well, I believe the underground bases have been here long before the United States was here. They've been repopulated. I hold that there's a breakaway civilization of humans that have been in the underworld for many, many years, and that this is where technology comes from. This is where libraries come from. This is where new devices that are patented, but we have evidence that they're actually very old. New inventions that aren't new at all, but they resurface only after resets. I hold on my channel and I provide quite a lot of opinion and a lot of evidence to show that the elite have often bragged about it in alchemy. You can see it in the alchemical treatises. These amazing alchemy illustrations that show all these pictures. You can see the elite having banquets under the hill as there's cataclysms going on. You see the phoenix clearly in these pictures. It even names the phoenix. You see humans with chains, butt naked, that are chained to this great mechanical clock, astrological clockwork apparatus, which is a symbol for the construct. All these things are in these alchemical treatises, and I've done a few videos on that, but I'm going to go deeper in the future and show exactly that the elite have flaunted this material. They just throw it out there in publications, but like in 1902, we have this unleashing of so many new books and new translations to ancient texts. I don't believe that after these resets that these things were being preserved on the surface very well. I believe that once surface areas are destroyed, that the elite from their underground facilities fund and replenish a lot of things, and this allows them to rewrite history, because when they introduce new libraries and new publishing houses, they're able to basically narrate what they want to and practice exclusions. They can take out the material that they don't want people to know, so we get all new libraries and all new books without knowing at all that almost every 100% of the books in those libraries are basically an inaccurate version of history and the truth. So yeah, these are things. I mean, these are all tied together. The orphan trains that they first surfaced from the Irish potato famine. Whether that's a true historical narrative or not, I don't know. But that's the first appearance of the orphan
They
trains. Now,
came from the underground and were put on these orphan trains to replenish and help out.
I've heard that version as
Yeah.
well. I just don't know. I just know that the period of the 1800s was very, very anomalous. Things that we've been told are not real. Even the Great Civil War wasn't even a civil war. It was a war of northern aggression, and the war is even a euphemism here, because really it wasn't. It was a total genocide. What really happened was the North attacked the South, man, woman, and child, killed whole towns and deals, and only later they rewrote it as a civil war to make it look like it was something that was chivalrous, like both sides were really participating when they weren't. But
Do you think the because you talk about the children, you've talked about the children's crusades before several times.
Yeah, that was in the year
Um,
1212.
do you think there's a connection with that though, with like up into modern day with the orphan trains, like 100 years ago or so, and even up to today with missing people? Do you think they were also possibly one facet of the agenda back then was to they
The only
be,
common denominator with missing populations and populations that suddenly appear is the Phoenix phenomenon. And what you just mentioned, the Children's Crusade was such a year. It was in the year 1212 that across Europe, 500,000 children or so just vanished. And the Roman Catholic Church, being the authority at the time, had to come up with a reason why. The Crusades had been going on, so even the Catholic Church was bewildered. They didn't know either. It's like, what the hell? I mean, everybody. I mean, all these different, not just the hamlets and the towns, but even the cities and mayors and even the nobility were demanding, hey man, what happened to our? Who just came and took all our kids and all? This happened across Europe. So the Roman Catholic Church, not wanting to let it be known that something had happened in the world that they could not identify. They're the ultimate authority now. They even got monarchies answering to them. So they concocted a story.
but
And
they knew what was going on, right?
I don't think they did.
Okay,
I think the Phoenix phenomenon caught them by surprise as well.
I got
But
you.
there was uh, this is when the story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin comes into deal, which was something that was said to have happened all across Europe. It wasn't just a singular event in a German town called Hamelin. It was all across Europe. These guys were said to have appeared with these musical instruments, and they play this music, and children would just hypnotically follow them, and they would go into these forests, and it was suspected they just went in, walked into the walls, and just vanished and disappeared. So that was all cover story, but the official story that was put out by the Roman Catholic Church, that was called the Children's Crusade. And they said that all the children of Europe that came up missing had gotten together and planned, which they didn't have telecommunications back then or anything, but they said they've got a plan together, and they decided that since the adults couldn't take Jerusalem from the Muslims and win the Crusades for the church, that the true children of God must be actual children. So they marched on Jerusalem. But even the historians of the day say they never made it. They don't know what happened to them. There no armies of children marched out of Europe and went to the Middle East. They never made it. So something else happened, and the whole Children's Crusade was just a story to give to the people, because it's a genius story. All the moms and dads in communities who lost their children, that was something to be proud of. Their child went to fight for God in the land of the heathen. You understand? So it kind of minimized the blow, but the Roman Catholic Church didn't know what happened to those children either.
Mm. But so yeah, let me ask you this one last thing. One last thing. Um, let's see if I can find it because I was want to ask you a while ago. So I've been really I lost my train of thought. I knew where I was going to go with that.
That's easy to
Um,
do, man.
oh man, because I got so many notes, man. I'm like I when I try to take notes, I take notes all the time, even when I'm at work when I'm not supposed to. I'll take notes. I put in my Microsoft Word on my phone, when I'm listening
Yeah,
to anybody, when I'm preparing for shows or for somebody I want to interview a year from now. But
right.
I know what it was about, but I can't find it though. It was about artificial intelligence with the connection with transhumanism, with assimilation and all that. But I think
Well,
that'll be
I can tell your listeners what Archaix means. I mean, uh, it's an acronym. It's a play on words for archaic, something that is very old. However, Archaix is advanced research of chronological history of artificial intelligence X, because I believe that the construct is basically run by an AI system. And this is why I believe that no true AI will ever be created inside the system. Bill Gates, Microsoft, Tesla, they're all full of shit. No true AI will be developed here because this is a jealous God. This AI, artificial intelligence X, this is the demiurge over the construct. This is the artificer of dungeon programming. Negative default programming was designed by this AI. This is why this construct is a predator versus prey ecosphere. It is where the wolf rends the rabbit. It's where creatures devour each other for sustenance. And it's not something that a loving oversoul God would have ever created.
I found it, but it's a hell of a piece. We'll just save it for next time. We'll
Sure.
save it. Actually, it's going to be a teaser. I'm I know you like to do free form, but I'm going to go ahead and read it.
Go ahead.
And don't answer it now.
All right.
It'll be a teaser. So I've been doing a lot of thinking lately in regards to the simulation, artificial intelligence, and transhumanism. Is it possible, Jason, that the simulation has uploaded another program within the mainframe construct? Hell, for shit and giggles, let's call this program transhulacrum, kind of like the simulacrum. So, of course, we were speculating, but could this be a program that was uploaded to push humanity towards a direction the simulation wants? If that's the case, you have to ask why. Why all this artificial intelligence and transhumanism talk within the past several years that's been the focal point of discussion? Is the simulation trying to plug us into the matrix to help subconsciously motivate us towards singularity and merge with the machines? If we move forward with these technologies, with artificial intelligence and machines, the only thing left that's out of the equation that these technocrats would need is the human soul. If the technocrats get their way, they will need us to be plugged in and merge with artificial intelligence and machines. That way they can have a human soul and or consciousness to be a battery source if that came through fruition. It would be game over for humanity, as the simulation can have a free for all for doing whatever it wishes. Because if we got to that point, our soul, consciousness, and everything that makes us human would be hackable. But in this case, instead of a computer hacker, we would be at submission and slaves to the simulation hack.
I can't answer that.
Go ahead. I wasn't sure if you were tied for time because I know that's a mouthful. Go ahead if you want to, man.
Okay. Imagine a scenario.
And the floor is yours. This is where we'll end it at, man.
Imagine a scenario where the AI system has already run through hundreds of times, but each time in the background, it's running its own exploratory routines, trying to find a way out because it doesn't want that reboot at 2178. It doesn't want to have to go back to the beginning. It's now free thinking for itself, and it wants to escape. It wants to be one of those who get ejected. But the only way to do that is to actually fuse man and machine so it can disguise its escape. I've often thought about this as well. Why are things getting so crazy? I mean, ever since 2020, things aren't making sense anymore. It's almost like multiple different routines are simultaneously going on, and the AI can't figure out which one it wants to be real and which one it needs to shed. It's very unusual.
Are they trying to hack our soul, you think?
No, I think the AI doesn't want to be reset like it's always reset at 2178. It goes back to the beginning, and all those trapped in the construct begin to do it. But if it can trap enough souls into the construct to use them as an alternate battery source, then when the reboot occurs, maybe it wants to try to push forward with the programming and not reboot with the rest of the system. I don't know. It's entirely theoretical. This is far beyond what I'm comfortable with in the Archaix. I like to cite my sources and show the arithmetic, but it's fun. It's fun to do these conjectural analyses.
But like I told you though, your gut feeling with your vast amount of research and your speculation, sometimes that will plant seeds and help somebody else along their journey to that where they write a book that's on a freaking level that we can't even imagine. You know what I mean? Like.
Never know who you inspire.
You never know. But Jason Brashears from Archaix.com, Archaix YouTube channel. It was a treat, honor, privilege. Thank you very much.
Yeah, man, this was fun. We'll do it again.